do this one a little different because I want to do a screen share because there's no book to show. The idea of the market point of view was inspired by a Medium post that I'm going to show you right here. What I'm going to show you is very different from the direction I ended up going with market point of view, which you'll see if you go through that challenge climb. It's one of the stories. So it's your story about the market and the shifts in the market and conventional wisdom, where you play, why what your approach does yields to people, and the problems with conventional wisdom and where that takes you, which is in the wrong direction. The use case for this particular method that I'm going to show you is a little different. This is designed as a sales presentation where you've got the attention of your audience, you're sitting in front of them on a screen or in a room, and you're talking about what you do. And I think this is coming from the software industry. So these can be very high level conversations. You could be talking to an executive team in a corporation, trying to sell them on a new methodology or an approach. But the concepts are really, really good. So I'm going to show you this, and I'm not taking you through this approach in our revenue operating system module, but this was a good baseline understanding of the thinking behind some of the things that I got to. So Andy Raskin developed this approach. He has a consulting firm in Silicon Valley. He's pretty high end, so he's not within our kind of community network because his clients are, I'd say, funded, probably B, C, A round maybe, or backed, at least backed, angel backed startups. But he puts out this information in public. He's definitely worth following. He knows a lot about storytelling. So this article, called "The Greatest Sales Deck I've Ever Seen," is about Zora's. I'm sure he created it with them. That's probably why he's using it as like a case study example. So what he's talking about is someone whose sales pitch falls flat. So kind of that high level presentation where somebody goes up with their bona fides and says, we got all this money, we did this cool thing. Let me show you how cool it is. And then they go into the demo and everybody's checking their emails and looking at their watches and so on. So I think this is what he's trying to solve. So the 5 elements of a brilliant sales narrative. And now I don't know if he did this deck or not. It's possible somebody else did it and it inspired him, because he just says, I'd received the deck from an ex or a salesperson who said it helped close the biggest deals of his career. Yeah, so he probably didn't do this. So he just learned about it. So I want to make sure that's clear. So the first thing you do is you name a big relevant change in the world. So you don't talk about your product, you talk about the change in the world. We now live in a subscription economy is the beginning of this. So this slide comes up and they talk about living in a subscription economy. Everybody that works in this industry, the people they're talking to, that takes money to sell software, various types of products, who's collecting that money and used to charge perpetual licenses and then maybe service packages on top of that, and at renewal, knows what subscription economy means. They may not even know what the words mean, but when you explain we now live in a subscription economy, they are in the middle of that shift. It's changed everything. So now, people now probably, some younger people who are listening to probably are like, what are you talking about? Well, it wasn't always the case that you paid a subscription for software or anything. Now we do this with everything, Netflix and our Salesforce.com. Although they charge by the year, it's still a subscription. But this is new. So Zora comes in and they basically invented the phrase. I think they came up with the phrase subscription economy. Oh my God, that's even better. To make up the shift, But either way, most of us can't do that, but we can say this is what's going on. So when you're talking to people about your business or you're publishing articles from your point of view, you want to be talking about this, something people understand that's really in their face every day. That's how you start the conversation. Now, I'm not going to throw all the details of this, but what attracts human attention is change. If the temperature changes, if the phone rings, that gets your attention. The way in which a story begins is a starting event that creates a moment of change. Now, again, this isn't my methodology, so I'm not going to take you through how to do it. I'm showing you what he's done. So number 2, show there'll be winners and losers. Loss aversion. You're not telling them if they don't buy your stuff, they're going to be a loser. And you're not telling them, here's a list of the 15 companies that bought my stuff that are now winners. People don't believe that. They're not swayed at all. I don't think at all. There is no biological principle that triggers anything in somebody's psychology based on telling them that they're going to be a winner versus a loser because of you. I don't think it's anywhere in there, but there's definitely something in there that's biological and very deep around loss aversion. People do not want to be in the loser category. They're going to get out of the loser category if they can. That's pain, but they may not know they're in the loser category. They may be aware of the shift, but they may not be aware of the significance of it. Or they may be aware of the significance, but they're not sure what to do. Or they're kind of thinking about what they want to do, but they're not sure who they're going to do it with. That's where you want to come in. So to combat loss aversion, you have to explain how the change will create big winners and big losers. You have to show both. That adapting to the change will result in a highly positive future, or that not doing so will result in an unacceptably negative future. So they go to mass extinction. 52% of the Fortune 500 companies have disappeared in the last 15 years. Well, how'd the winners do it? They shifted their mindset. Mindset of what? Around what? Subscription economy mindset. Unilever buys Dollar Shave Club. So Unilever shifted their mindset in response to the subscription economy because they're a smart company. They paid $1 billion for a startup in challenge to P&G. Well, what is Dollar Shave Club? It's a subscription economy company. I think you pay a monthly fee and you get the stuff in the mail, refreshed, your blades, whatever. That's the subscription economy. That's where everything's gone. Unilever jumped on that. This could be a pitch to Colgate or Kraft or somebody, I don't know who else. And it also led to other companies that rejuvenated and transformed themselves, IBM, for example. They talk about what's the common thread. I don't want to get too bogged down in this stuff, but now the thread's clear that if you adopt a subscription economy model and Zora's product, you'll be in the winner category like Unilever. They didn't say that though. Because if they say it, now the biology kicks in and people's reptile brains put up a wall of danger, danger, they're going to make me give them money. And then they try to get you out of the room. They fight or flight to deal with danger. You don't want to go there. The story is taking them there. Now tease the promised land. This is when people, again, like they did pretty good. And then immediately, once they see the nods, they're going to start talking about how great their thing is. They'll talk about how great Zora is, what it does to help you with the subscription economy. You don't even know what it does, right? Unless you know Zora. When I was reading this the first time, I didn't even know what the company did. I'd finished and I started talking about this article. I still didn't even know what Zora, what they did. It didn't matter. All I knew was that, wow, this is pretty important. Subscription economy, I got that. Winners, losers, I certainly got that. Tease the promised land. Don't talk about your product and service. Resist the urge. present a teaser vision of the happily ever after, the land that your promise will achieve, the promised land. It's desirable and difficult for them to get to without outside help. That's why your company exists. You're still not talking about that though. So customers now expect the subscription experience. The promised land is that in this new subscription economy, already most customers expect you to deliver. They expect a subscription experience opportunity. They want to be able to pay on a monthly basis or a weekly. They want to pay subscription as opposed to buying the whole thing. Well, that's a problem, right? So the promised land is not about having the technology. It's about what life will be like when you have the technology. So when you're talking about this promised land here of customers expecting the subscription experience, where, in other words, if you're a company and you're giving everybody that subscription experience, you're in the category of winners. You are on the right side of this shift. You're not going to be on that side of the Fortune 500 companies who've disappeared anymore because you figured it out and you're there. Well, how are they going to do that though? They're like, great, I can be in the promised land. There's the promised land. How am I going to get there though? Now you come in, introduce features as the magic gifts for overcoming obstacles to the promised land. So you see how he's talking about storytelling? Successful sales decks follow the same narrative as epic films and fairy tales. Your prospect is Luke. You're the Obi-Wan giving the lightsaber to Luke. It's always like this. All the storytelling stuff, everything in business should follow this framework of storytelling, not just this approach. Every time you speak, you should be thinking about the storytelling approach. So you want to introduce the product and service as a magic gift, as the lightsaber that you're giving the hero, the customer. So now Zora is talking about how this works. They're talking about how they manage subscriber identity. So the old world, the traditional record, the new world is the subscriber identity record, which is much more complicated, obviously. You know, a lot of people start here, right? When they do sell tech, they start with this slide, old world, new world. This is boring. And your competitor's doing it. So out of context, this detail would bore even the most technical prospect. But position in the context of transformation from old world to new world, now we really got somewhere. So Zora is still not completely talking about what they do, but they're talking about old world, new world in the context of the product that they're offering in this subscriber identity category here. Now you have to get to evidence to prove that you can do this because you're making a commitment. So the promised land is hard. It's littered with obstacles. So they're going to be skeptical and should be. There's a lot of vaporware idea. Great marketers who don't deliver anything. They know that. Most people have been through that. The most effective evidence is somebody else talking about it for you. So here's a CEO of a company. There was a pre-Zora box and a post-Zora box. It was really painful before you guys came along. He's talking about himself. He's talking about his own pain. He's not saying, oh, they're the best people I've ever met. It almost sounds like you paid him to say that, Ben. He's talking about life is a lot less painful now that I did this. He is talking about being in the promised land because of Zora. The person listening relates to him because he's like them. So you had to pick the right people, obviously. So let's see. I won't go through the whole thing here, but this is a really nice methodology. I have the link to this, so you can check it out. I don't think this specifically is a relevant approach to most people in our community because we're not selling complex software, complex technology solutions. So I didn't put it in the revenue operating system. I put market point of view which may not seem quite the same as this because it's not, but it was inspired in part by finding this deck a few years ago and thinking about how am I going to use these principles because it's so good. What Andy Raskin's got here is so good.